Welcome to the Deconstructing Data podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with co-host Joshua Morgan, customer advocate at Drift. Normally, David Finkelstein, BDEX's co-founder and CEO, co-hosts with us, but unfortunately, he had to evacuate due to Hurricane Ian, and we are missing him today and wishing him and everyone in Florida all the best at this time. Today's guest, I'm excited to introduce. Let me pull her and the co-host in here. Fariba Zamaniyan, thank you for being here, VP of Data and Advertising at TiVo. Fariba is a recognized leader, experienced manager, and media industry expert with a proven career history of success in the development and scale of products that monetize data and technology for advertising. Fariba is someone we're grateful to call a friend here at BDEX. We're lucky to get to work with her on a number of projects as proud partners of TiVo's. It's a privilege to be able to work with TiVo to help more advertisers improve their return on ad spend by targeting their consumer audiences deterministically. As always, Fariba, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much, Jessie. It's truly a pleasure for me as well. BDEX is a great partner of ours, and just really excited for our chat today.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm super excited for this. This is kind of our first time meeting, so I love meeting new people. So, but why don't you start from the beginning, kind of tell us your story, and if you could please kind of tell the listeners a little bit about TiVo's story, and how you help people there today.
Sure. No, it's really been, a storyline that's just been based on data. Data as a product really hasn't been that, sexy kind of association with advertising as I think back historically in my career, as it is today in terms of, the critical role that it plays in not just evolving what advertising is in front of when it's delivered to consumers, but how it actually gets there. So I've been with TiVo for 13 years. It's been various companies over the course of that time, but really what's been the mainstay is the ability to leverage data to help advertisers minimize risk, maximize efficiency, reduce waste. And in this day and age where most of the video content that we're consuming today is delivered on a digital basis, that delivery is being done so on the back end with data that is helping to shape and guide where that delivery is going and whom it's going to. TiVo is a beloved brand. I think we all know of TiVo dating back 25 plus years to our invention of the DVR, which really was one of the first of its time that gave consumers control of the ability to watch video entertainment when they wanted to watch it by recording and watching at a later time. And fast forward to where we are today, where streaming video enables you to access video content when you want to watch it, and a variety of ways to do so, which I know we're going to kind of dissect some of those today. But TiVo has always been, from that day to where we are today, its motto has been about enabling consumers to find, watch, and enjoy entertainment. We are owned by Xperi, which is a holding company, soon to be Xperi Inc. On Monday, which its foundation is about the delivery of extraordinary experiences to consumers, with TiVo being one pillar in its portfolio of delivering that video content. But we also have other ways with auto, with our DTS product, with HD powered radio in cars, as well as a theatrical entertainment experience with IMAX Enhanced. So I'm really proud to be part of the organization as it's continuing to evolve. And we've got some exciting new products that we'll be bringing forward to consumers in the months to come. So it's really exciting for us.
That's fantastic. Well, let's get right into the topics. What do you say? So our first topic that we have is political segments and channels in 2022. And to kick this off, as you know, Fariba, I started my career working on political campaigns. I worked on local, state, national candidate campaigns in multiple capacities. I also did nonprofit campaign work. And one thing I learned, even in 2008 through 2014, was that the quality of your first party data would help you win. There's a lot of obsession over fundraising data, of course, as there should be with required reporting. However, those campaigns who could harness their voter data, enrich it with actual field outcomes where voters are, surveyed on whether they support you or not, those are the ones who would win, is what I would find. And I would work for underdog candidates a lot, and we would be able to beat the odds simply by collecting and analyzing first party voter data. And, at that time on state and local races, we were really only using that data to target with direct mail, identify supporters to activate for GOTV, and then also to identify non-supporters to suppress from our different marketing campaigns. But now campaigns can use their first party data as seed data for so much more. Could you tell listeners more about where we've come with data and targeting for campaigns in 2022?
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible when we think about the political vertical. Think of it as, a vertical of advertising. They were one of the first to really embrace the power of data when it came to targeting specific audiences that expanded beyond just gender and age. So this capability of doing this hyper targeted ad placement, so in this case, local television advertising, for example, they took it a step further by, as you worked with and described with your experience, voter registration data, which starts to put the population into segments based on their political affiliation. Because there's, obviously a waste that could happen if you were targeting campaign message that is supportive of a candidate on the left side versus the right side. You can have a very different outcome. So this helped in terms of maneuvering the actual placement into this much more narrow audience where a message could actually be more impactful. And so now we've come to this point in our evolution where we have many more data points accessible to us that can help further drill into or identifying that specific consumer population that we want to influence with campaign messaging at a very localized level. And we compound that based on the various topics, some more divisive than others, that there is data that is accessible to help create these more refined consumer profiles that are deeper than just a political affiliation. So, for example, with TiVo and what the work that we're doing with BDEX to support these more enhanced initiatives is to be able to drill down further into, for example, video consumption preferences. So that if we can tie together political affiliation as well as a geolocation, for example, knowing what zip code or area of the US that household resides in, and then add additional behavioral elements to further refine who that audience is, it makes that targeted ad placement even more impactful because the relevancy of that audience receiving that message, we know that there's a more positive impact or outcome when you can build relevancy into the equation. So that we're not getting targeted with candidate messages where we're like, oh, I have no desire or interest to support that candidate. Right. So I think that also tied with the medium in which that ad is being delivered. So whether it's local linear television, it's mobile advertising, it's social. And what's probably the most underutilized is that emerging platform of connected TV, where those digital capabilities can now really be combined with these enhanced audience, data-driven, audience-based targeted initiatives on a hyper-targeted level.
Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, you guys are doing some really great work. I know we have this QR code where if folks wanted to learn more and explore with you, they could visit this webpage. Could you tell them a little bit about the webpage and what information they could find there?
Sure. Yeah. So as we head into the midterms, we have put together some pre-built audiences that have taken what I just stated into effect and made them readily available for digital activation. So think of audiences where you want to zone in not just on a geography. So let's say a zone or a combination of zip codes, but you also want political affiliation. So let's say it's you're a registered Republican and you're a viewer of local news in late fringe, for example. These are the types of audiences that we've combined the voter registration data plus behavioral tune-in data sourced from TiVo's linear viewership data, which is passively collected from set-top boxes across the US to define these consumer profiles that are readily available on the shelf. But there's also, we are actually getting a lot of interest, and I think this is where it's advancing now, is, for example, you would like to target a candidate's messaging for those who've been exposed to your competitive ad. You know they're watching in that programming where their competitive ads are airing, and you want to target them with your competitive message. You often refer to it as competitive conquesting. You can also create audiences based on exposure or non-exposure to candidate messaging so that we'd be able to target those prospective consumers accordingly. So it's really more refined than just what programs or what time of day you're watching television. It can also go down to the level of whether or not you've been exposed to a candidate message or not, a competitive candidate message or not.
Oh, that's awesome. So I guess, let's move into advertising week, if you don't mind. Is there anything else, I guess, before we move on that you'd want to add on political segments?
Well, I just want to say I think this discussion is interesting because I think a lot of politicians do not have that good data. And so, because what we have seen recently is you have these political candidates, not to name any names, but if you go to their landing page or their web page, they are, I swear I'm going to protect that, whether it's the Second Amendment or the Roe versus Wade or whoever, whatever it may be. And then if you go back to their web pages now, they have scrubbed all that off there. And so, they have this, they think that they're appealing a certain way to the voting demographic, and it has completely backfired, and they are like backtracking and going, oh well, that's not what we really meant. So I think there's a lot of the data is very, very interesting that they're pulling it after the fact and having to do damage control rather than allowing it to fuel their campaign in the beginning.
Yeah, because I think this upcoming midterm is like no other. There are topics that are on the ballot that are not the standard ones, or at least at the top of the list are not the standard ones, such as the economy, healthcare. You've got social issues that are more relevant to consumers. And I think that's where data coming into and guiding the delivery of the candidate message on a more one-to-one or individualized basis versus a mass approach is more prevalent than ever, because social issues are not necessarily always defined by who's in your neighborhood, which is typically how targeting is done, is we assume that who's in your neighborhood is going to define who you are when it comes to those types of social issues. So I think one-to-one targeting and messaging, because of the sensitivity tied to some of the issues that are on the docket this coming election, I think are really what's going to drive the necessity and demand for that more hyper targeting. And avoid that scrub off the page, and instead focus on reaching and influencing individuals.
Absolutely. All good stuff. I mean, I could go on and on about the political segmenting and targeting, but I know we wanted to touch on Advertising Week just real briefly. It's coming up in October. I know the BDEX team, we're going to be, we're going to have a team at Programmatic IO, and we would love to meet with anybody. If anybody is going to be out there, feel free to, drop a comment in the comments on LinkedIn on this post. And we could definitely get someone to meet up with you. And Fariba, where are you all going to be on Advertising Week?
Yeah, it's always exciting when there's an event actually in New York City. We're so accustomed to networking with industry fellows at all different locations, and on the West Coast and in Florida, our typical mainstays. But when it's in New York, which is the epicenter of advertising and media, it just accelerates the excitement. And now with the pandemic behind us, we can feel confident in the fact that we can interact with our colleagues in the industry. And so TiVo is going to have a really strong presence this year. We usually try to have a large representation of folks from our monetization practice, which is kind of the umbrella that is made up of our data and advertising business. So we're going to have a couple of speaking engagements, myself and Walt Horstman, who's the SVP of the monetization team. I'm going to have the pleasure of doing a talk track during the tech session on the 18th at 2:35 with Laura McKinley, who's the CEO or CF. Why am I blanking? I see it too fast. Chief Data Officer. I wanted to say CDO, but I'm like, does anybody know what that really is? But Data Officer at Horizon Media. And I think what's really going to be super interesting, you've probably seen some of the promotion in the trades about the work that they're doing to engage new clients and support existing ones with a data platform that really helps roll out on a mass market level this notion of data-driven audience targeting. Like we were just talking about with political, data-driven audience targeting has been part of their DNA when it comes to campaign promotion. But when you think about other verticals and the larger verticals that are consistently advertising, not just, every other year or once every 4 years, they're on air all the time, and they're up against a lot of decisions to make and changing the model of how media planning is done and advertising dollars are allocated across channels. So we're seeing some of these major agencies really step it up and invest in innovation and bring this forward to their clients on a mass market level. So really excited to talk to Laura about the work that they're doing with their data platform, Blue. They're a partner of ours. They leverage TiVo's linear TV viewership data as part of that. So it'll be great to learn how they're rolling out the platform for their attracting new clients and existing ones. And then we've got a second talk track at 2:50 with Walt that's titled The Importance of Data and Identity Management to Maximize Outcomes. Sorry, that's mine. Combining the strength of CTV and linear to drive effectiveness. So really, we are also in this space where we have a market that advertisers are still not really sure how much of their dollars to invest in CTV, for example. Just to give you a sense of this, the delta between the two, 50% of adults are streaming to get to their video content. They have on average 9 different streaming services that they subscribe to, but only 22% of advertising budgets are being allocated to that channel. So There's a lot of room to catch up and close the gap. But it's billions of dollars are at stake. So it is a matter of like crawl, walk, run into the investment arena. So it'll be great to hear Walt and his panel to kind of talk about how CTV and linear can work together to really bring that forward and close that gap in investment. So we are also going to have an event on October 18th after our discussions at 5:30 at the Grand Delancey, which is at the Market Line where Adweek is being held this year. So feel free to come and watch our engagements 2:45 and then at 4:35, and then come and have a drink with us at 5:30.
Nice. Well, thanks for sharing. So yeah, BDEX and TiVo, we will be out there in New York. So let us know if you would like to meet up. But Josh, what do you think? Should we hop into that third topic?
Well, I was just thinking about when she said that people have all these streaming services and we have several also. And I'm really surprised, like, and this is just me, and maybe I don't understand like the enterprise segment of business, like that style. But if I was a CEO of like Netflix, I'd go hit up the CEO of like Hulu and Amazon and like Disney Plus and go, hey, why don't we create like a package deal? Because I know, like, I'm like, there's really not much I would like watch on Hulu that I can't get, so I'm not really going to subscribe to it. But if they offered a package deal where they had all these streaming services where you could save a few bucks, like I think it would push people to actually like use the service and like subscribe more.
Well, I think so you bring up something that we talk a lot about and preview something that we're going to be launching next week that's free for download, which is a biannual report that TiVo does called the Video Trends Report. And it's always interesting to really compartmentalize like how much time consumers or adults spend watching various services. So you've got the streaming video on demand services that are subscription based. You have the ad supported video on demand services and the fast channels emerging, which are free and ad supported. You've got, this tolerance that consumers have for advertising that they're willing to trade off relative to getting access to video content at a lower cost, if at no cost at all. So as we see this, Netflix going to be launching an ad-supported service. We know Disney Plus is going to have a reduced ad-supported subscription service. That there is more and more advertising that's coming into this medium, which we've been saying the Video Trends Report that the great rebundling may come back to the old cable models. So if you think about it, what you just described, Josh, is what, the Spectrums and the Cablevisions of the world have had in place for, a long time in the linear world. So now moving forward into the streaming, I don't think what you're describing is something that will be out of question. It's just a matter of the economic financial models as they evolve with more ad-supported streaming content that comes available to consumers at low cost or no cost. So those fast channels, the free channels, they're growing in popularity. We will see just as a preview of the outcome in next week's report release. You're going to see that they're the only sector that's actually showing growth in terms of adoption. So I think there's a lot more to come in the year or two ahead as that becomes more mainstream.
Absolutely. I only stream at my house, so I can definitely relate. But yeah, Josh, go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking, like, we have, like, I wouldn't have Amazon Prime if it wasn't for like the benefit of the shipping, So like I could sit through on Amazon some advertising because it's usually only like 2 to 3 short clips. Like it's not very long. Mm-hmm. But like, and I did the same thing with like YouTube Music for a long time. Now, what got me to subscribe to YouTube Music was the fact that if you're not on the paid subscription, you can't click your screen off or the music stops. So like, I was like, my wife uses the non-subscription model. So we listen to like the advertisements and stuff like that. But like, it drove me nuts that you couldn't click your phone off while you're driving. So yeah, I was just like, God.
The funny thing is having small kids, now, like when I was little, we of course just had to watch the commercials because that was just what we knew with live TV. But now with streaming services, if something comes on, it's like, oh my gosh, the end of the world. They're not used to seeing this ad. Plus, you're like, oh my gosh, what kind of ad is even going to play? Like, depending what you have on. But yeah, it's a different world that we're in.
It is. It got to a point where we just got so used to not having to sit through an ad, but we're in a different time now. Look at what's happened in the last, my gosh, look at the last 3 years, what we've gone through and what we have coming ahead and what we're in the midst of, with an inflation and cost constraints. And, it's real for a lot of people. And, spending, $5 more a month is not reasonable. And, we didn't even talk about, how hard it is to find something because you have all these subscriptions. Can you even, it's amazing. You have 9 services and you can't find something to watch. That's like going in your closet and being like, I have nothing to wear. When you have a lot to wear. But so I think that is really that, this shift change that we're going to start to see in this ecosystem and what consumers are, willing and to tolerate. And I think if it saves some money, especially during some economic downtime, it certainly opens up that opportunity. I mean, look, the advertising industry is going to hit 300 billion this year. So that's not coming from linear alone. So that must mean that there's an acceptance by consumers to receive it.
Well, hopefully it will become more relevant. And I like the last time I could think of when I was actually excited to watch commercials was when I was like 7 and 8 years old. And this is when, Saturday morning cartoons would come on starting at 7 with like Hubert and Punky Brewster, and then it would go like up to about 11 o'clock in the morning. So you had like 4, 5, 9. So you had about 2 to 3 channels of just nonstop cartoons. And so, but all the commercials were like toys and
good stuff.
And so as a kid, like you looked forward to, like they had like the Pound Puppies and the Cabbage Patch Kids and things like that came on dating here. But like now, like there's like I watch adult commercials and it's always like heartburn, digestive issues and so like it's almost like the advertising out there, at least on regular TV many times, is just, and we've discussed this before, it's just not really relevant to so many people. And I think if you can make that relevant advertising, like it would make it, people would be a whole lot more willing to sit there through the commercials.
And I think, Josh, that's exactly where the industry is going. So remember that gap that I described of, 22% of budgets, but 50% of adults are streaming. Once we can close that gap, and the technology, and let's go back to why we're here today, is about data. Data can enable a digital placement of an ad. When it comes to connected TV, for example, it's digital. But traditional linear is not, you can't just turn on a switch unless you're doing it addressable to a specific box in a home, but that's not on a majority scale. So you don't have the coverage in order to do that, or at least it's building up to have that capability. But for traditional mass media linear buys, it can't be targeted to your household. So there's going to be waste, but because the cost is less, the efficiency is there. So it's from a consumer perspective, you're on the receiving end. You're like, this has nothing to do with me. But as we get more engrossed in this digital medium of video consumption and advertising starts to catch up with the volume, then you'll start to see less of that type of advertising that is not relevant to you, because the data about specific behavioral elements that define your household or your area of households or your device is what is done today will become more targeted and relevant to you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Points.
We've got a lot of great topics to continue on with advertising, but we have this third one on tech stacks. Do you want to zip through it, Josh?
Yeah. So out of curiosity, what is either your favorite or your most useful 4 to 6 things in your tech stack right now?
For me personally?
Yeah.
Okay. So, gosh, I would say, obviously, do you mean things like my devices, like my phone?
Well, it could be or software, it could be analysis tools, kind of, things that you're using like in your work life.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. So, because tech stack can mean so many different things, right? So I think from and this is a good promotion for LinkedIn. It's an it's an instrumental part of my day. Whether it's for staying on top of industry trends and news, staying connected with colleagues in the industry, having the ability to stream events like this, working and connecting with colleagues at BDEX in a forum beyond a Zoom call. I think this is probably one of the most critical pieces of tech that's in my day to day. And I would say it really has definitely filled that gap from COVID when we couldn't meet and interact in person. So I would say that that's pretty much like the main. The other is, I will say our TiVo devices. I use it in my home. Is how we are passively capturing behavioral data on consumption. I think that that is we used to say when we first started capturing the data when I joined 13 years ago, a set-top box is like a mini computer. And it's gone way beyond that, and it's shrunken in size and gotten more smaller, and now it's inside the TV. So that for me is a big part of staying on top of the various content, the different platforms that are available, to be in tune with what is an advertiser up against when it comes to delivering their brand message and the complexity of how and where it gets delivered. And it's the source of our data collection. So those are the biggest, I would say, and most impactful tech in my daily routine.
That was all good. Thank you so much for sharing, Fariba.
Yeah.
That's something we like to ask everybody, and yeah, they all take it in different places. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
Getting back into advertising, we were talking about some current events a little bit before the show. And, I was trying to summarize it up. So I just put Facebook, but really, I guess we could say Meta. But can you talk listeners through this and what's going on with Facebook and political targeting right now?
Well, for those who haven't heard, I mean, they basically have, because of what happened in the last presidential election with, I won't go into all the details, but they really cracked down on what are fraudulent advertising that's taking place on their platform, posing as a legitimate site or announcement, but actually being very fraudulent. I think it's a great thing that Meta has done to crack down on it and give consumers confidence that what they're seeing on their social platforms like Facebook are truthful, or as truthful as they can be. But it also, for me, raises attention to the fact that the political segment is not really leveraging all of the other platforms as well as they could be, because there is risk when it comes to social, given these bad players that are out there. I believe this one was found coming from China before it was Russia. So these are kind of give me a discomfort with the social platform. And really, when it comes to the social issues that are on the docket this year, and that one-to-one, yes, social is certainly a platform, but because of this potential for fraud, and certainly fraud is relevant, and it's out in digital, whether it be capability for display, mobile, it's something that we have to combat as an industry, because it can lead people down a path that they otherwise would not have intended. But it opens up the consideration for platforms like connected TV, which I've been talking about, that is just being underutilized, and the ability for data-driven audience targeting is there, and can be a platform to supplement or allocate some of those dollars away from the social platform where some of this fraudulent activity is taking place. And, it's probably best to steer clear of it.
Absolutely. I mean, really, the news was about Facebook and what you mentioned, but it's all social media platforms. This is a problem. And I honestly think we're probably going to be combating it. It's not going to be something that's going to go away easily. And it's just going to get more complex. But what's your take on all this, Josh?
Well, I just, it takes me back to when living with my grandfather, and he'd be watching Tom Brokaw on the nightly news. And Tom seemed to be a guy that was, regardless of how he felt politically, like he just, it's almost like Dragnet. Here's the facts and nothing but the facts.
Yeah.
And so it just seems like currently there's so much like decisiveness and divisiveness, where like you can say, well, which one are the right-leaning news outlets? Which ones are the left-leaning news outlets? Rather than, and I would love to like just get to a point to where the facts and nothing but the facts, and there's no swaying one way or the other of personal opinions. Like, whether you're a Republican or whether you're a Democrat, like just report what is happening without, trying to sway or cast shade on one of the, whoever the candidate is. And so, and so obviously like Meta, like they're having to do this because there are, we're long gone are the days where people actually like hear something and they're like, let me go see if this is true or not. Like like there was the like it was like on TikTok and some other social media, they were like selling these rings, which they're like, it's coming September 23rd. It's coming. And we've got these rings here that will protect you from the evil energies and stuff. And people didn't even like bother to find out what it was. And so these people made like just a bang worth of money off this and stuff. But it's like this sensationalism. You can just kind of get on and say anything. And people are like, oh, well, this must be true. And then it spreads like wildfire.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. It's like, it's so hard to just get the facts. But then again, it's like there was a Jedi mind trick that's been put on the population. And once they get into, sucked into one news venue or a social platform, it's like mind numbing. So I think there's, unfortunately, the days of Tom Brokaw and just the facts, where you had two or three news sources, really the three from the cable broadcasters, even before Fox became an entity. It was about the facts. And now, because there's so many touch points, and also access to data, that's the other thing, is that data, we were limited by what they could get access to, and we leaned on them to give us those facts. And now there are so many ways to get to data, knowing if it's high quality data, is it legitimate data? I think that's really where the controls need to come in. And so I'm glad Meta did what it did, but there's still a lot that needs to be done.
Still more to be done. Absolutely. Well, real quick, do we want to touch on holiday advertising? I know that, advertisers right now, they're preparing for Black Friday, the holiday season's coming up. Fariba, can you bring us up to speed on, how is TiVo able to best help advertisers this season and BDEX with our partnership?
Yeah. So this is, like you said, holiday season is always a big peak of shopping. But in anticipation of that, you've got advertisers like Amazon, which are going to have now 2 more, discount shopping days for Prime members. So a real interesting way for them to
Nice.
get ahead or jumpstart on the holiday by having these days in October. It's like kind of like, I went to Costco in early August and they had Christmas stuff out. Like,
no way.
Yeah, like in the beginning of August. So like it's really kind of now seeping into summer and getting holiday shoppers to start shopping. So it's kind of, it's a little too soon for the rest of us because we're still trying to catch up with, okay, back to school and fall. So in anticipation of holiday, and what a great way to target consumers with advertising are those that actually really get into the holidays, right? Those that are really active and shoppers. They watch holiday programming. They get into, sports that are only airing on, certain days during the holiday season. Christmas Story, shows like that.
Yeah.
We have defined those viewers so that we can, again, really eliminate the waste, reduce risk in reaching an intended viewer base by knowing those that are probably more likely to get a jump start on the holidays are the ones that are actually tuned in and watching these types of programming. So we with BDEX have created what we're calling holiday viewers, the viewers of the various holiday programming during the season, to really help zone in and hyper target digital ad placement against that viewer base, because it's going to be a hot season of shopping, even though there's, some inflationary concerns, prices are high, but that's not going to stop consumers for shopping during the holidays. So we're there to support the advertising efforts, and those pre-builts are ready. As you see, the QR code is there. Check it out to take a look to see what's available.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm going to switch the QR code now. And actually, that's still the QR code, but this is the OmniIQ QR code. And in closing, I wanted to talk a little bit about OmniIQ, but let me see here. So Fariba, I guess thank you so much, first of all, for being here. And I wanted to let everybody know, please follow Fariba on LinkedIn, as she mentioned it in her tech stack. Just search her name. You have the spelling of it right there on the screen. For listeners on podcasts, it's Fariba Zamaniyan, Zamaniyan. Find her on LinkedIn. Keep up with what she's doing. You have a lot to learn from her in terms of data and advertising. She has a wealth of knowledge to share. So please be sure to follow her on LinkedIn. And for anyone in our audience who, might prefer an audio format, you can find the Deconstructing Data podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and iHeart. Clips of these episodes also get distributed across BDEX social channels on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. So also, if you find the Deconstructing Data podcast interesting, you will probably like BDEX's OmniIQ, and that's the QR code here. It'll take you to OmniIQ. If you can't see the QR code and you're just listening, simply go to bdex.com, click the try for free button, and upload a list, a CSV file of your first party data, and get complimentary analytics on your data. Utilize our free data clean room and upgrade to create audiences deterministically with machine learning for your next campaign. If you check it out, please be sure to share any feedback right within the app. It's still a new app and it's being molded by our customers' feedback. So get in now while it's still new. We would also love to hear from listeners about the show. You can reach us at info@bdex.com. Share your qualitative data with us so we can make this better for you. And I did have an email to share if anybody wanted to reach out to Fariba and her team. I got that right, Fariba?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So reach out to them there. And of course, there's info@bdex.com. But thank you, everybody, for being here. Josh, Fariba, thank you so much. This has been a great discussion.
Thank you so much. This is always so fun and great chat, guys. Let's do it again soon.
Absolutely, because we got to get David back here because it's always so much better when he's here.
Wish him well, please.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.